Hi there, and welcome back to another episode on the Project Corner. Today I'm going to continue my Flaw series. This is Flaw number 4, and I'll put a link in the show notes for the other flaws that already passed and the ones that will come in the future once they come. So this is a flaw that is mainly about micromanagement. So this is called, and I call it, too much detail in the schedule. There's a number of things that you want to keep in mind when working with a Microsoft project schedule. It has durations, it has work in there, it has a start and a finish date, and there's no real need to have every little detail in a schedule, because that makes the schedule unmanageable. What I mean with this is that there is a certain amount of trust that you need to have in your team. That team actually delivers the product or the service that's in the schedule. So it makes sense to have them have their own little space, their own space to actually work and actually complete that project. If you have a schedule which has every little detail in there, every little task in there, then it will be too much. And let me just show you what that could look like. For a schedule that takes in total 20 weeks, then it makes no sense to have this task for 3 weeks extracted and having them with subtasks of a day. Maybe 2 days makes sense, and then having a subtask for even a task. So these tasks are way too small because it micromanages the whole system. If a task skips here to, for instance, 4 days, everything moves. But that would also mean that probably this one would take half a day. Oh, sorry. Dutch and English are different. So having these tiny little tasks in a larger schedule that takes you multiple weeks, multiple months even, why would you have that in there? Well, there's a couple of reasons why you shouldn't have them in there. Because this is unmanageable. This would mean that every day you would go into that schedule and you would update that. Alright, so yesterday I was here and I'm going to update this, and now my schedule is up to date. But that also means that you will need to go in there tomorrow and you would need to hit that button again because that task was completed tomorrow. And what happens if, for instance, one of these tasks wasn't done today, so it would take 2 days all of a sudden. That moves again. And if you have this in the whole schedule, and even for way in the future, for instance, now the future is 3 months from now, would I have that single day tasks all the way through my schedule? That schedule will become huge, way over 500 tasks if you have a normal schedule with development plan, execution, and completion. That would be a very big schedule. Keep a couple of things in mind when you're going in a schedule and you start scheduling. So there's a couple of things that I want to give you as a guiding light to good schedule management. A couple of things here is if you have a team that works for you, ask the team how long it takes to actually produce a product. Give the team some form of self-management. And keep in mind, how often do you actually intend to update that schedule? Is that going to be daily? Are you daily going to sit in there, open up Microsoft Project, edit the schedule, close it again? I guess you wouldn't, because you are a project manager or a scheduler that has interaction with the team and having the objective of completing that task or completing that project. So there's a lot of things that you want to do except for scheduling in Microsoft Project. That might be something strange that you hear from a Microsoft Project consultant, but it is actually best practice to look at how often are you going to sit down and update that schedule. And if that's going to be weekly or bi-weekly, why would you have all these little nitty-gritty tasks in there? Because if you update the schedule bi-weekly, do you know for certain when a task was finished? So how does that information actually trickle down to you? Well, you have these meetings. How often are those meetings? Are they monthly? Are they bi-monthly? For huge schedules that take years to complete, it actually makes a lot of sense to have tasks not smaller than a month. Because you'll have 12 tasks a year. Or you might have 24 tasks a year. But that is actually quite a lot. And for a project that spans multiple years, it makes a lot of sense to have that. So in the beginning, I briefly mentioned the difference between duration and work. Keep that in mind. There is a difference between how much work a task takes. I could write a document in 16 hours. And when does it need to be finished? When does it need to be delivered? The duration could be 2 months. Finishing that one document. I have multiple municipalities that actually have that in their schedule. So it won't make sense to have those 16 hours in there as being 2 days, because it won't be finished in those 2 days. Because that person that writes that document isn't going to sit down for those whole 2 days. He's going to do other stuff. So we mentioned two things. We mentioned how often will you update the schedule? We mentioned how often do you get updates? And even those two can differ, right? Because you would update the project more frequently than you get updates from your scheduling, from your team members. That would make sense because maybe you would like to look ahead of time and your team members will tell you how progression has been done. The third part of this is how often do you report? Because there's the one side of actuals and updating your schedule yourself, but there is a reporting need from the organization and from your client probably. Is that going to be monthly, bi-monthly, maybe even every quarter? What sense would it make to have 100 single day tasks if you update your management only once half a year? That won't make any sense. So this is a cry for help. Everyone, please keep in mind, keep the duration of your tasks not smaller than a week, because you won't have that data. That won't make any sense. Now, there's a big exception here, and that big exception is highly critical moments within the schedule. If you have a very critical point in time in that schedule that you want to detail because every hour makes sense, make sure to have that in your schedule and make sure you're on the work floor, updating that schedule, making sure that everything is taken into account. So that's it. That was my single most ranty video ever. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked it. If you have any comments, please let me know if I should change the format or if you would like to hear more of these rants. This was Flaw number 4. Too much detail in the schedule. All about micromanagement. Please don't do it because it's too much time, too much effort for you and everyone involved. Thank you very much. If you like this video, please hit that subscribe button. Make sure to also subscribe to the newsletter because then you'll get this file and you can share that around with everyone who is interested. And without further ado, I hope to see you in 2 weeks.